Good evening, folks. This is the Factivist Report for Sunday, the 16th of January. We're at mid-month. Originally, our plan was to talk about ProPublica tonight, but we have changed the focus based on actual historical events that are going on right now in front of your face. We're going to continue to talk about the country's march to full frontal fascism, as I like to call it, because they're doing it right in front of your faces and you're not paying attention to it. You're too busy posting memes of sheep with masks on and lions without masks on and pounding your chest because you think you're a revolutionary because you're refusing to wear a mask. What you are is fucking stupid, but hey, let's not go there. So without further ado, we're going to talk about fascism. And by the way, the right wing has used COVID-19 to help advance the cause of fascism in this country. You better be waking up and you better be doing it soon. Go ahead, Dave.
So, as Deb said, we're going to be talking about fascism. We'll start with a definition of fascism, some examples of fascism. Most people know about the fascism of Nazi Germany, so we are going to go there. A lot of local politicians in terms of school boards, and we're going to be talking about school boards a lot because it is the most localized form of government that we have.
And that's their entry point.
And that's their entry point, and we're seeing a lot of entry of fascist ideas through those school boards, and we're going to be talking about that a lot, and a lot of the rhetoric and what we can do and what fascism is, and also what fascism isn't, which is masking and vaccines, which I know a lot of people think that is fascism, but we're going to be talking about it and why it isn't and how the right wing is using that. So let's start right now with a just very basic definition of fascism. Right off the bat, it's described as far right. Fascism is a form of far-right authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and the economy. Now, they talk about its prominence in early 20th century Europe, mostly Italy and Germany. Now, one of the things that really breeds fascism is racism and just bigotry. And you saw that in Nazi Germany with Adolf Hitler was able to really allow it to flourish with the anti-Semitism, racism against blacks, bigotry towards the gays, and also a lot of oppression of labor movements and his opposition. So one of the ways that he was able to do that was through propaganda. Okay. So he used it in his book of Mein Kampf. So he devoted 2 chapters of his 1925 book, Mein Kampf, into a propaganda tool. In the study of practice and propaganda, he claimed to have learned the value of propaganda as a World War I infantryman exposed to very effective British and ineffectual German propaganda. He argued that Germany lost the war largely because of British propaganda efforts. So he studied it. Okay. So while dictating Mein Kampf, Hitler coined the term the big lie.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
To refer to the use of a lie so enormous that no one would believe that someone could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. So just wanted to throw that one out there.
What does that sound like?
Yeah. So I know people know about the concentration camps between 1933 and 1939. The key fact that I want people to understand here is that what distinguishes a concentration camp from a prison is that it functions outside of a judicial system. So the prisoners are not indicted or convicted of any crime by a judicial process. We're not there yet, but we can get there quickly. So, for those of you who believe that the Germans only prosecuted the Jews, here is a brief history of Black history in Nazi Germany, who were also in the concentration camps and killed. And here is a story of the treatment of gays, also called the pink men, who were tortured.
Yeah, so in case anybody wants to know where the pink triangle comes from, that you see on gay stuff all the time, this is where it came from.
Yep. And those triangles were placed on these men as targets. They would have these men run around, and they were being used as target practice for the German soldiers. Now, these men, they only had to be suspected of being gay, which was a crime in Nazi Germany. They would only have to look at another man too long. They wouldn't have to be convicted. They only had to be suspected. Just so you know. Treatment of gays in the Nazi concentration camps was truly horrific. Gay men were used for medical experiments and as shooting targets. Guards would aim for the pink triangles on their chests that symbolized their sexual orientation. They were tortured, experimented on, and ridiculed. They were beaten to death by their fellow prisoners. They received the most dangerous tasks in the camps, stone quarries, and factories. And Pierre Seal, a gay Holocaust survivor, said the Nazis stuck 25 centimeters of wood up my rectum, up my ass. I mean, sodomizing him. This is an article by Jason Stanley. Now, this is December 22nd, 2021. This is relatively recent, less than a month ago. America is now in fascism's legal phase.
I just want to interject one thing here. I think people really don't understand where we are right now in this country.
No.
I really don't. I think people need to understand what the election of Donald Trump has wrought upon this nation. It has brought this out into the open, and these people are now in our government. Okay, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, all of these people who ascribe to all of this kind of bullshit, and they are now working to codify this shit. And it's much easier to do that in state government, and that's where this is happening.
Yes.
State by state by state by state. At some point, it will become a national plague. People need to fucking understand what is going on here. Stop wrapping yourselves up in your own problems and understand what's going on here.
This is a slow process, but we are getting to the end of it. This is a very good article. I'm just going to
By the way, this isn't new since Donald Trump. The right wing has been working on this forever. All right. What this is now is end stage, okay?
Yes.
This is end stage here.
So this is Toni Morrison's 1995 address to Howard University. Okay, so almost what? 30 years ago? Almost 30 years ago? Let us be reminded that before there is a final solution, there must be a first solution, a second one, and even a third. The move toward a final solution is not a jump. It takes one step, then another, then another. So began Toni Morrison's 1995 address to Howard University entitled Racism and Fascism, which delineated a 10 step-by-step procedures to carry a society first to last.
I'm assuming we can click on that. People can click on that address and read it.
Yeah.
I suggest you do.
Okay. Morrison's interest, but yeah, the address is right here. So, was not in fascist demagogues or fascist regimes. It was rather in forces interested in fascist solutions to national problems. Right now, we're talking about the school boards. And procedures she described were methods to normalize such solutions to construct an internal enemy. I don't know, the transgenders, the Asians, BLM, Antifa,
Immigrants,
the mentally disabled or the mentally unstable. Sound familiar? Isolate, demonize, and criminalize it and sympathizers to its allies and ideology and their allies, and using the media provide the illusion of power and influence to one's supporters. Morrison saw in the history of U.S. racism fascist practices one that could enable a fascist social and political movement in the United States, which it has.
Yes, it has.
And it goes on, talks about the super predator myth, you know. And yes, I know Hillary Clinton did mention, you know, super predators. I get that. But you take a look at what Trump has done and just the rhetoric over and over and over again. Marjorie Taylor Greene calling her fellow coworkers terrorists. I mean, and it's not only political at that level either. We spoke about this woman last week. Houston lawmakers from both parties decry a candidate's call to ban international students from China because they're communist. This is Shelley Luther. This is what you have to do, though. This is part of it. You don't just ignore this. Oh, if you ignore her, she'll just go away. No, she won't.
Not go away. If you ignore these people, if you ignore this situation, they just keep going. They are the Energizer bunnies, the right wing.
A Republican candidate for a Dallas area state house seat, so this is state politics, is under fire from members of both parties after tweeting last week that Chinese students should be barred from attending Texas universities. The exact tweet was Chinese students should be banned from attending all Texas universities, no more communists. Guess what? This right here is fascism and racism. She was called out. And every time this happens, you have to call it out again and again and again.
Here's another thing you have to do as voting citizens. Don't fucking vote her in.
Correct.
Okay? All right? Let me just say this right now. The people in North Carolina, they don't want Madison Cawthorn back. They're trying to prevent him from running again for re-election based on his involvement in January 6th. There are other legislators who are involved in that. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Josh Hawley. You have the power to vote them out. They are fascists, okay?
And when you vote them out, you don't allow them in other smaller offices either.
Right.
Don't allow them to run for mayor. Don't allow them to run for the school board. Don't allow them to run for town council. Keep them out. Because I know it sounds dramatic, but what I described, just the small parts of what I described that happened to the blacks, the Jews, and also labor leaders, gay Germans, what happened to them could happen here.
For Christ's sake, you had the president of the United States floating the idea of people with COVID being put in Guantanamo so no one could see them and it wouldn't ruin his re-election chances. Get a clue, people.
What I just described, okay, and there's a lot more. You go into the Holocaust, that site, thus the atrocities that happened to these people. GOP state senator walks back comments on Nazi history in schools, which basically says that, Marxism, Nazism, fascism, I have no problem with the education system providing instruction on the existence of these systems. I believe we've gone too far when we take a position. We need to be impartial on Nazism, on the extermination of people.
No, we shouldn't.
No,
we shouldn't. And by the way, floating another idea. What's the other idea? That it didn't happen? Or that Hitler was justified? Which one would you like us to present to your children? First of all, denying that this happened is an insult, okay, to those who have survived Nazism. And if you think that Hitler was right, you're a fucking Nazi. How's that?
And going on what Deb just said, Texas school official says classrooms with books on Holocaust must offer opposing views.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
And by the way, I see this bullshit all over Facebook. This was all started by the right wing, and social media is poison. It is a breeding ground for stupidity. And it's a breeding ground for passing on every single post without even thinking about what you're doing.
So I want people to hear this for a moment. A Texas school district official told educators if they kept books about the Holocaust in their classrooms, they would have to also offer opposing viewpoints in order to comply with the state law. Again, what are appropriate opposing viewpoints? That it's okay to kill massive groups of people based on their demographics? I mean, what is it? In an audio clip obtained by NBC News, Gina Petty, the executive director of curriculum and instruction for Carroll Independent School District in South Lake, if that is if that is an elected office, vote her out. Offer the guidance to teachers during a training on which books teachers can keep in classroom libraries.
That's fascism.
That is fascism.
When Ron DeSantis, passes a law, proposes a law that will allow parents to sue teachers if they teach the truth about American history, which we call critical race theory, which, basically, let me just tell you, our ancestors brought the black man here to sell him into servitude. Okay, that is a fucking actual fact. All right, when you pass a law that allows parents to sue teachers, that is fascism.
Okay, the training came after a Carroll school board had reprimanded a fourth grade teacher after parents complained about a book on anti-racism in her class. And it followed the passage. I'd like to know what that book is, actually. And it followed the passage of a new Texas law that requires teachers who discuss widely debated and currently controversial issues of public policy or social affairs to examine the issues from diverse viewpoints without giving deference to any one perspective. At the training, Petty advised teachers to remember the requirements of the new law according to the audio, and make sure that if you have a book on the Holocaust, that you have one that has an opposing, that has other perspectives. What are they supposed to put in? Mein Kampf? Which prompted a teacher to ask what would be the opposing view of the Holocaust. The district superintendent, Dr. Lane Ledbetter, did not immediately respond to the Guardian's request for comment, but offered a sincere apology in a statement shared on Facebook. During the conversations with teachers during last week's meeting, the comments were made in no way to convey that the Holocaust was anything less than a terrible event in history. Additionally, we recognize there are not two sides of the Holocaust. So what are we talking about?
What you're talking about is racism.
You're talking about racism. You're talking about suppression of one of the biggest historical atrocities of our time, and suppression of history. So
it really is amazing.
This is an Atlantic article by David French. It was very recent. It was a few days ago. Basically talks about anti-racism is racism, and they talk about the 1619 Project, and so third wave anti-racism is a profoundly religious moment in everything but terminology. The idea that whites are permanently stained by their white privilege, gaining moral absolution only by eternally attesting to it, is a third wave's version of original sin. The idea of some day when America will come to terms with race is vaguely specified as a guidepost as Judgment Day. Explorations as to whether an opinion is problematic or equivalent to explorations of that which may be blasphemous. The social mauling of the person with problematic thought parallels the excommunication of the heretic. What is called virtual signaling then channels the impulse that might lead a Christian to an aggressive display of her faith in Jesus. So this is McWhorter. Okay, John McWhorter. To me, that was Christian gobbledygook, to be honest with you. So the author of this article talks about right-wing rather than conservatism.
Right.
The problem is racism exists, and it has to be addressed in the classroom, because it will, if it isn't addressed, it will exist in the classroom as well. And if you ignore it, you accept it.
Right.
I don't know what happened there.
I think he had it in twice.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So here we go with some of the rhetoric. Laura Logan of Fox News calls Anthony Fauci Dr. Mengele.
Unbelievable. You know, I just I just can't even. You know, it amazes me. You know, I'm going to say this again. This guy's 81 fucking years old. Okay, he can turn around at any time and tell you to all go screw yourselves. You're on your own, but he doesn't. And by the way, he's been working in public health since 1968. He could have gone at any time, anywhere he wanted, and done something else with his life.
Right.
Okay, he is not just the leading infectious disease specialist in the United States. He is considered that throughout the world. You're the people that are off base.
The medical experiments that the Holocaust Museum was talking about, they were directed by Dr. Mengele, and they were some very disgusting, repulsive experiments, and didn't involve putting a needle in your arm with vaccinations. And we will talk about Nazi Germany and vaccinations at the very end. I'll leave that at the very end.
Also, just you make this statement. I'm going to say it again. The vaccines being used for COVID are not experimental. mRNA technology has been around for a very long time. And that is why they were able to develop these vaccines as quickly as they did. In fact, mRNA technology right now is being investigated to help with heart problems. Wake up, everybody. I don't know what the fuck you're thinking, but somebody has polluted your brain.
I don't know why it's doing this, but it keeps on jumping back and forth. I did want to mention this real quick, kind of jump topics, but Trump claiming absolute immunity. Shut up. Shut up. All right. Trump did claim absolute immunity. He doesn't have absolute immunity. He's not president anymore. And even if he did, he wouldn't have absolute immunity.
He's a citizen now.
He's a citizen now. And by the way, trying to do that is fascism. He's trying to set himself up as another Bolsonaro, who he
Endorsed, by the way.
endorsed, and who he, I don't know, worships, but considers Bolsonaro a mentor, I guess.
He considers him a strong man, and we know Donald Trump likes strong men. He does, because that's really what he wants to be.
This is just another article about the GOP being fascist at this point, and they are. Democracy needs every ally that it can get to fight the racism and the oppression that some of these legislators are trying to put forth. And by the way, to equate this whole voting rights bill as just another notch in Biden's belt, he didn't have to put that, or he didn't have to endorse that. He didn't have to push hard for that. It's the right thing to do, just so people know. One more about why this. Oh, hold on. Another article about comparing COVID to the Holocaust. And it's the point that not only are you creating this noise, you are diminishing the Jewish experience.
It's insulting.
It's insulting.
Okay. COVID policy is public health.
This is an opinion piece by Ahmed Twaish. I apologize for the mispronunciation if it's mispronounced, but Newsweek's kind of all over the map. But this particular piece is right. It's the COVID policy, the masking policy, the vaccine policy is not Nazi fascism. It's not. Because I don't see any one group being forced on a table and vaccinated. That's not what's happening. Okay, so here's another one of school board. And this one's pretty insidious, actually. This is an article from the Daily Beast from Brooklyn Howard. I know Data, Texas school member, goes on racist rant about black teachers. So this is Onika Myers. He's the director of Millennium Learning Concepts. Went through a presentation about diversity and equitable practices and learning opportunities within the district middle and high schools. MLC is an organization that provides equity assessments. And the data provided, Myers noted academic achievement disparities among different racial and ethnic groups. So what basically saying is that blacks aren't as intelligent as whites. That's what he's saying.
And he's also saying black teachers don't teach as well as white teachers.
Correct, because they're not as intelligent as whites.
Exactly.
Again, these arguments were given during almost the exact same thing during Nazi Germany.
He's got his own company. All right, yeah. He's generating his own fucking data. Okay.
Right. This is the
goddamn clue. Have you seen any of the raw material? I don't think so.
This is the company. Okay. If you look at this company, it just looks like your typical assessment company. Okay. And oh, look, there's a black teacher.
Yeah.
We don't discriminate. We just say they're stupid. I mean, come on.
You'll notice that a lot of this stuff originates in Texas.
Yep.
Right.
Anti-Defamation League talks about the 3%ers. Now, this is an ideology. It's part of a militia movement supporting the idea of a small number of dedicated patriots protecting Americans from government tyranny, just as the patriots of the American Revolution protected early Americans from British tyranny. Only they are protecting them with AR-15s, I'm sure, and not with muskets.
Right.
So this is anti-government extremists who are part of the militia movement. They compare their hostility to the federal government with the opposition of the American patriots to the British. The term itself is a reference to a false belief that the number of Americans who fought against the British during the Revolutionary War amounted to 3% of the population at the time. Historians say that it's actually much higher. I don't know how higher. 3%ers believe that just as a small revolutionary vanguard overthrew the tyrannical British rule in America, a dedicated group of modern patriots could rid the United States of today's alleged tyranny. So, here we go. The 3%er concept may best be understood as a way to simplify, popularize, and spread the ideology and beliefs of the militia movement. The militia movement is a right-wing anti-government extremist movement that arose in the early 90s, 93, 94. Its core belief on the idea that the federal government is collaborating with a shadowy globalist and socialist conspiracy, also referred to as...
Here we go.
Go ahead, Deb.
God damn it. I'm so fucking sick of hearing that term. I've got to tell you.
To strip Americans of their rights and freedoms, blah, blah, blah. Starting with their right to bear arms.
Right. Yeah.
You know, how about their right to live or their right to go to college? The Chinese.
How about no one's trying to strip you of your arms? You see anything even being written or proposed at this time? We are in the first month of the year. We already have, what did I give you for a number? From the gun thing I showed you?
Yeah.
1,700 people dead by gunfire through January 16th, from the 1st to the 16th. Last year we had 45,000 people killed with guns. You know what? Get a fucking clue.
Now, I looked. What's the name of the gentleman who supposedly him and or his brother started Q? What was his name?
What guy?
The guy who supposedly started Q, who's running for office.
Oh yeah. Hold on. I can't remember it was him or his father.
Or his father, right?
Yeah, his father was there first, and he came in afterwards. I can't remember his name, but he's running for some kind of government position in, I believe, Alabama.
Watkins, Ron Watkins.
Ron Watkins, yep.
And I think his father is Jim Watkins.
Yep.
Okay, so supposedly they have some kind of link to Alabama. I checked to see if this guy is connected to him. I couldn't find any connection yet. The 3%er concept originated in 2008 on a blog, the Sipsey Street Irregulars, run by Mike Vanderboog, an Alabama-based anti-government extremist who had been involved in the militia movement for many years. So this is an article from the Communist Party USA. Now, I don't care what your political affiliation is, whether you like this party, not like this party, don't know who they are, but they are correct in their assessment in terms of the extreme right. The extreme right aims for the school boards. They are. This is September 9th of 2021. This is written by Joel Cornell. And they just talk about Loudoun County, Virginia was known, for some conflict in their school board, and it's just starting to move in different directions. Gerrymandering. For years, right wing of the U.S. political ecosystem has been getting pushback from several quarters, like Occupy, Black Lives Matter, women's marches, climate marchers. And then the Republican Party decided to focus on taking over state legislators and governors' offices, which from a strategic standpoint was very smart, and through extreme gerrymandering to stay in power. They have been wildly successful, and now GOP controls the legislative and executive branches of 23 states. And you're seeing things such as the banning of critical race theory, which is basically the banning of history. It just happened in Virginia. The new Governor Youngkin just did it in Virginia.
On his first day.
On his first day.
And by the way, in Texas, you're also, I believe the total is now 875 books that have been banned. They're now banning books in Texas. So if you're 16 in Texas, you can carry an AR-15, but you can't read certain books. It's just amazing to me. In fact, some people in Texas actually went on a talk show and were calling for book burnings.
Right.
Okay. By the way, I think the other thing that should be mentioned here is, and I think you might have scrolled past it. You went down too far, but the things that they focus on are, here we go. The myths of American exceptionalism.
Oh, okay.
The myths of rugged individualism, and the myth of white Christian supremacy. So what they want you to believe is you don't believe in community. You don't believe in caring about each other. You believe in that rugged individualism bullshit. You know what? Something happening here, baby. And, in my mind, it's pretty clear.
So I wanted, before I jumped off of this one, I wanted to mention this. Besides mask wearing, the latest school board meetings have focused on two primary issues, and we're still in Virginia. The first is trans rights, very real issue of liberation, which has been aided by the successful implementation of draft policy 8040, which will ensure that all students will be referred to by their chosen name and pronouns, with access to the facilities, sports, and programs that correlate to their gender identity, which I'm sure is being attacked as we speak. The second issue is the teaching of critical race theory, a fake issue driven by right-wing propaganda with the immediate goal of preventing students from engaging in educational discussions about racism in America. So long-term, the GOP is using this issue as a dog whistle to galvanize our voters and win elections in 2022.
Yep. Yep. And yep.
I checked this author out. I actually like her very much. Her name is Robin Panaccia. She writes for Wonket. She's a staff writer. A polite reminder that right-wing fanatics are coming for your school boards. This is Mr. Tony Perkins. Deb, would you like to speak about Tony Perkins?
Tony Perkins, he is one of the most rabid homophobes ever in history. He has been around since I started looking at the right wing. He has he's a family research council. There are so many of these groups, it's hard to remember. There's Focus on the Family, there's the Family Research Council. He has spent years demonizing gays and lesbians. But, you know, as is the case, we can branch out from there. We now have transgender people, we have masks, and we have vaccines. And what the right wing is doing is, you know, rolling all of this bullshit up into one big ball where they're trying to protect your freedom.
Yeah. Now,
they don't care about your freedom.
This right here, take a look at this article. I'm not going to read much of it. But what Robin says, once again, a warning, right-wing extremists are planning to take over our school boards. QAnon people, anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, homophobes, people who are weirdly obsessed with critical race theory, etc. And it's not just individuals doing this on their own. There are organizations out there supporting them and teaching them how to run and take over school boards. This is bad. It was bad when the religious right did it. It was bad when the Tea Partiers did it. And it's going to be even worse now because these motherfuckers are crazier than all of them. So there.
Absolutely right.
There's Robin Panaccia in a snapshot. And this is a Family Research Council. And right now they are at the buffet table because Joe Biden is president. Hollow the leader. Biden's empty year takes its toll. Whoever Tony Perkins' pun writer is, it's just, you know, right now, this is a boon for them because they have a Democratic president in office.
They do this often.
Yeah.
They do this often.
Family Research Council raises money for right-wing school board takeover campaign. This is Peter Montgomery. This is Right Wing Watch. I just found them. I know Deb knows them well, but these guys are great.
Yeah, and People for the American Way is a good group.
So Family Research Council President Tony Perkins is raising money to promote right-wing takeovers of local school boards, which he claims is necessary to protect the hearts and minds of the next generation from the left-wing agenda.
The left-wing agenda is that everybody has rights, and we want everybody to understand the fucking truth about American history so we don't repeat it. But right. You know what? We're about to. So
I'm
too busy.
Yeah, I'm going to read this at least part of this fundraising letter because this is how slimy these people are. So, fundraising letter dated August 2021, Perkins wrote, as hard as the COVID-19 pandemic has been on everyone, it did one unexpected blessing that I urge you to help me capitalize on. Yeah, give us money.
Yep.
Scumbag. Perkins continued. You see, when public schools were forced to go virtual, parents got a front row seat to the radical anti-faith, anti-family, anti-America indoctrination being force-fed to their children. From gender identity ideology to critical race theory and the revisionist. See, I want to know where the revisionist 1619 project, where it was revisionist, because this is Howard Zinn, by the way, branding America as systematically racist from its founding until today. Parents realized that their public schools were filling their children's minds with lies, hatred, and division, and they were horrified. Perkins didn't hold back on the height. The danger cannot be overstated. These ongoing,
doing the indoctrinating. These
exactly
doing the indoctrinating.
So these ongoing efforts to indoctrinate our youth are an extent. How many times did he use the word indoctrinate in this letter? Like 3, I think, as an existential threat to our families, our faith, and the very freedoms that we have long enjoyed. He complained that younger generations have slowly moved from embracing Christian values and loving our country to accepting and even supporting godless forms of government like socialism and communism.
Guy, you know what? He's poison. He really is. And by the way, our government was not based on Christian. This is not a Christian government. It never was a Christian government. It never was a Christian government. They've got you believe in that bullshit, but it never was.
Now, I implore you guys, if you're interested in following the right wing watch is a website to check out. Right Wing Watch recently reported that right wing activist groups and there are other right wing groups that they mentioned, the Leadership Institute, Intercessors of America, and Center for Renewing America are also fanning fears and resentments over teaching about racism and transgender inclusive school policies. So, and there are a couple of reasons why, strategically, again, right-wingers are going after school boards. Number one, you're talking about kids. They're talking about the left-wingers are indoctrinating, but by twisting history, they're actually the ones involved in the indoctrination. Also, there's a fact about school boards. You don't need this is who sits on the school board. And by the way, this was CNN and was written by Teresa Waldrop, October 24th of last year. It's pretty good, actually, because it defines what school boards do and how people are elected or chosen in different towns. Board members are usually elected officials. This is who sits on a school board. Board members are usually elected officials. They are hairdressers or doctors or lawyers or store clerks. In most places, anyone can run for a seat on a school board who is at least 18 years old, registered to vote in that district, and lived in that district for at least 1 year before the election. So pretty much anybody can run for a school board. So, you don't need a background in local government, public education, or public policy to run for the school board, the Texas Association of School Boards says on its website. Here's one thing that I don't know if teachers from another, you have to live in the district. So if you're a teacher, administrator, or staff member, you usually are not allowed to run, which I don't know if I agree with. And I know Deb mentioned this before the stream. Last week, we were talking about people on a certain database in regards to January 6th. There was someone who was fired from a Massachusetts school and then was allowed to run on the school board.
Right.
So
Was appointed to the school board.
appointed, yeah. Board members are often volunteers, though in large districts they may receive some kind of compensation. The boards, ranging in size according to the district, typically meet once a month. In some district, cities have given control of the board over to the mayor, and the board is appointed, not elected, as a way to address poor school performance and other issues. Chicago and New York have appointed boards. Elected school board members have a set term of years, typically 4 years. The seats are filled in staggered election so that no board is replaced all at once in one election. School board members may be subject to a recall election if a petition gets enough support and if these efforts have skyrocketed this year, according to Ballotpedia. The organization has tracked 82 so far in 2021, more than double 29 in 2020 and 4 times the 20 tracked in 2019. In 2006, there were 2 recall requests. So school boards are a governing body of the district they serve. They handle stuff like setting the budget, curriculum, policies on discipline and safety, including mask requirements, district school boundaries, calendar, and even bus routes. They hire and evaluate the superintendent. The board is also in charge of the big picture. They set goals and monitor school performance and educational quality. So it's gotten different, but it's gotten more acrimonious. One of the things that people are noticing is that long-term school board members are leaving because it's becoming very heated and violent, but not violent, but it's becoming very angry, I guess. The climate is very different now. What we're seeing around the country, school board meetings have actually turned violent, where the police have to be called. People are disrespectful. Geez, they're shouting and shoving. So, and that is, I would imagine, that is by design. They're looking to get people out.
Yep.
And intimidate people. Which leads me to this. Kentucky man, 45-year-old Kentucky man, investigated for quote-unquote Zoom bombing in Louisiana school's virtual class and hurling a racial slur at black 5th graders before threatening to lynch them. He has not been charged yet. Now, maybe there are investigations going on. I don't know. But hopefully, whatever happens, he can, he confessed to stealing over $1,000 worth of electronics.
Maybe they're investigating. He admitted to it.
Yeah.
He admitted to it.
But maybe they're looking to see if there are higher charge or more charges before they formally charge him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope that this man is charged quickly. He terrorized a bunch of 5th graders while they were trying to go to school.
We don't talk about that, though, if we're on the right. We only talk about the fact that we're trying to indoctrinate children by keeping assholes like him out of the picture.
Right. Black parents push back against right-wing attacks on critical race theory. Hopefully, white parents will do the same thing.
Really, again, amazing.
I mean,
if you aren't, I'm sorry, but if you aren't standing up for this, you might be racist. Okay, you might be racist.
Danielle Atkinson recalls being outraged after learning about an incident that took place 5 years ago at a Royal Oak Middle School located in suburban Detroit. It occurred the day after former President Donald Trump's win in November 2016. A group of Latino children were eating when white students began chanting at them, "Build the wall." That needed to stop right there.
That's taught. You know what? That's taught at home too. Sorry.
Yep.
Kids aren't born with that kind of attitude. They're not.
That's taught. You know what? That's taught at home, but it's also it needed to stop with the teachers or whoever was there. I mean, that's just, come on. This is more about right wing, the right wing propaganda stuff. Okay. So this is a little bit of a shift from the local school boards to a local town protest. This was a George Floyd protest in a small Washington state town. And I listened to this. This was a 21-minute little recording here by Noel Gasca. This was the town of Snohomish, Washington. And what happened was they had a George Floyd protest, a small George Floyd protest, and they were happy. And then the next day, they were actually pleased with the protest. Proud Boys came, and then all hell broke loose. But two of the people who live in this town recorded it, and it became a documentary. Now, Deb and I are going to look for this documentary, see if we can watch it.
Yeah.
Maybe even at some point do a
Facebook group watch. We're going to do that. Usually, you sometimes will have problems with actually trying to upload movies and watch them, but documentaries you can mostly get away with them. They don't give you too much trouble about copyright with documentaries. So we're going to see if we can find this one.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on who is producing it. If it's HBO, you're going to have an issue.
Right.
So I just wanted to show, this is Right Wing Watch. Okay. So I was impressed enough to put this in here. One of the things that I actually found by going on their Facebook page, and I shared this with Deb. There is a right wing. He's on the lower, well, on my side of the screen, right hand side, lower right hand side. He has the hoodie on, the gray hoodie.
Yeah.
His name is Nick Fuentes. He is a right wing, I say white supremacist, streamer. He's launched a new streaming video platform called Cozy TV. This is his words. I'm not going to play the video. You can watch it if you want. What makes it special? He actually says this. It's free speech, no censorship. We are anti-gay, anti-woman, anti-black, and anti-Semitic. Now, I wouldn't have found this if it wasn't for Right Wing Watch. So I appreciate
that.
They are
up in a nutshell.
Yep.
And
this is what
way,
they do.
My friends, is not free speech. I don't care what they tell you. Hate speech is not free speech. This country has lost its fucking mind.
The director of Right Wing Watch is Adele Stan. She's actually pretty good. If you want to listen to her briefly, this is a good little snippet video. I know it's 38. You can watch like 5-10 minutes of it. You get the general idea. So finally, what I want to kind of solidify, we've talked about fascism, what fascism is. It's oppression. It's it's taking information away from the people, forcing people to live a certain way, trying to just intimidate and or kind of stomp on a certain groups of people. By the way, I didn't mention everybody that the Nazis stomped on. They also stomped on people with physical and mental disorders because they weren't of pure race. I mean, the Aryan race was, so they wanted, pure, the best humans in the German race, by the way. So, but what isn't fascism? I don't know, masks and vaccines. Where did no shirt, no shoes, no service come from? Because this was a policy started by businesses. And initially I thought it was a safety thing or a public health thing. It wasn't. This actually started because of the hippies. Okay, so let's see. This is actually, let me go here. There we go. So back in the 70s, there was public outrage when businesses first placed signs on their doors saying no shirt, no shoes, no service. This was a response by businesses to keep the counterculture, the long-haired hippies, out of their stores and their restaurants. There's no state or federal mandate. There's no laws on the books about this. Many thought businesses were trampling on their civil rights by telling them what they could or could not wear. Businesses have a right to set their rules for service.
I must tell you, I did use that in the early stages of COVID because I had some right-wing, MAGA-loving customer come in. And this is when COVID first hit, and I told him he had to have a mask on. He went outside and took off his shirt and tied it around his face.
Right,
He
right.
came in without a shirt, and I told him he has to have a shirt on to shop in here. So I said, you can put your shirt back on and I will give you a mask, but that's the only way you're getting in the store. Sorry.
Now they go through this particular one, San Francisco Weekly. They go through, the seatbelt laws and stuff like that.
Like we talked about them last week.
Yeah, which we talked about last week, and insurance and all that kind of stuff. But here, Deb gave me this, and I read this, and I was like, wow, this is really good. So I'm going to start at the second paragraph of this GBH article by Robert Treston and Becca Rausch, November 9th, 2021. So first, any attempt to compare COVID precautions to the Holocaust is a false equivalency. Mask mandates and proof of vaccination are not the Nuremberg race laws. So this began the legal dehumanization of the Jewish population. And if you think that this isn't going on in the United States, think about some of the laws against transgender people that are trying to be passed right now. In fact, Hitler and the Nazis withheld vaccination from Jews and others to rid the world of undesirable and inferior people. I'm going to read this again.
Read it again.
In fact, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis withheld vaccination from Jews and others to rid the world of undesirable and inferior people. Now, before everybody goes crazy, before everybody says, but blah blah blah, and this vaccine isn't tested and blah 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 blah. At some point, I know. At some point, I am going to provide evidence to you that the mRNA vaccine had been in the works for many, many, many years. There's a book out there called The Vaccine That Saved the World. Okay, so calm down.
I'm just going to say this. He withheld vaccinations from Jews and others to rid the world. I promise you, vaccinations back then were not as advanced and studied
Correct.
as they are today. Okay.
Correct.
Vaccinations, when we were talking about the AIDS epidemic, the gay people in San Francisco were angry at the government for not letting them use experimental drugs to keep themselves alive. Well, I don't understand what it is that people don't get, but the only thing I can come up with is that people have been indoctrinated by the right wing, because that is where all of this anti-vax bullshit started. Okay. It started with the right wing. And Donald Trump's administration was responsible for more deaths than needed to happen here in this country. Okay.
Yeah. There's a couple more that I want to get out there. Second, they perpetuate lies about the Holocaust. This is the right wing. The proliferation of the Holocaust denial, especially on social media, is real. 23% of respondents in a recent study said they believed the Holocaust was a myth or had been exaggerated, or they were not sure. Nearly half reported seeing Holocaust denial or distortion posts online. 30% had seen Nazi symbols on their social media platforms in their communities. Denouncing COVID-19 mitigation measures by invoking Hitler's abominations fuels Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism, and further drives the serious need for Holocaust and genocide education. It's one thing to be infuriated by Sandy Hook denial. That is a small group of people, and I think Alex Jones was way off base doing that. To disregard an entire race of people and their near extermination is abominable. It just is. So which is it? You're saying which argument is it? That it didn't happen, or that 6 million weren't enough?
Those are the T-shirts, by the way, that were worn in Washington, D.C. at the insurrection. 6 million wasn't enough. Just so you understand that.
So third, they misappropriate and exploit symbols of the Holocaust, co-opting the yellow star as a political group dilutes and drastically distorts its history. Jews were required to wear the star for instant identification and discrimination. And I'm sure, and the gentleman who had the pink or the triangles on their chest, again, these giant symbols were used as targets for target practice for the soldiers. They're freaking animals. So, amidst historic levels of anti-Semitism and record reports of hate crimes, many leaders have exploited the horrors of the Holocaust for the sake of a soundbite. And I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene has done this, but there are other people who have done this as well. In August, Maine Rep. Heidi Sampson, speaking at a rally, protesting vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, compared Maine Governor Janet Mills to Joseph Mengele, just like we talked about with Fauci, the infamous Nazi doctor who conducted heinous experiments. And he did. I'm not going to go through all of the examples of that. I'm just not. It's just disgusting. On Jews and other Nazi prisoners. When she asked the crowd to recall the 40s in Germany and the experiments with Joseph Mengele, the demonstrators cheered. That same day, a school committee meeting in North Smithfield, Rhode Island, a parent speaking against mask mandates in schools said, "Oh my God, the Jews willingly got on the bus." Despite a packed room of elected officials.
I can't.
Yeah. Educators and parents, no one called her out. Last month.
Of course not. It's Rhode Island. They're all white and rich. What are you fucking kidding me?
Vaccine and mask refusers waved a swastika drawn from syringes outside the Massachusetts State House at an anti-vax rally featuring Republican gubernatorial candidate Jeff Deal. A series of TikToks by Dayton. Deb, how you pronounce it? Rehoboth? Rehoboth. All right. Regional School Committee member Katie Ferreira Aubin compared vaccine passports to Nazi concentration camp tattoos. Her tagline, "Same thing, different strategy," is not only wrong, but is insulting. In response, the Dayton Rehoboth community circulated a petition calling for her resignation. As this writing, she still remains in office. Even when the community speaks up against such pernicious analogies, almost universally, the response is silence and inaction instead of apology, retraction, and condemnation of such blatant anti-Semitism.
Let me just say something about Jeff Deal in Massachusetts. Yeah. I believe he's running against Elizabeth Warren. Get your fucking ass out and vote for Elizabeth Warren. This guy, I met this guy. This is no lie. I went to a gun show at the Shriners Auditorium in Massachusetts, not far from where I work. I work in Woburn. I went to the Shriners Auditorium in Wilmington just to see what it was like to go to a gun show where they were actually selling weapons. I've never been to one. The first thing that struck me was I walked in and there were little kids in military outfits with guns with their parents, okay?
Yeah.
That was number one. Number two, Jeff Deal at the time was running. I believe he was running against Elizabeth Warren then as well. But I actually went and talked to him at his table. This guy is fucking dangerous. And I played along with him just to get him to talk.
Right.
This guy is scary. And he should never, ever be elected to public office. He is cut from the same cloth as Donald Trump, top to bottom. He's a scary character. You know what? Massachusetts has managed to keep itself pretty clean so far, but I really feel like Massachusetts itself is being infiltrated as well. We need to stop this shit now, okay? We need to stop it now.
And by the way, California isn't safe. New York, I know, isn't safe.
None of it's safe.
Okay.
Nobody's safe in this country anymore. They have done a masterful job here. They really have. And everybody else has just been fucking asleep at the switch, talking about the NWO and the Illuminati, you know, and ignoring the shit right under their noses. And it's infuriating. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to be on social media and watch the incredible lack of intelligence from people that spend their day there. I really can't, I can't believe it.
I remember there was a story that I was taught. I might have even been taught as a kid, but I know that I learned it, you know, when I was going to get my master's of ed. First they came for the Jews, then they came for the blacks, then they came for the gays, then they came for the this, then they came for you. When you didn't stand up, remember all those guys would have stood up for you, you know, basically. So what we are moving down this path. We see the path. Can we get out of our own way and stop this? Okay.
Again, I have stated this, and I will state it again. The whole obstruct the vote thing. You know what? Had everybody been willing to stand up and disavow the system, that may have been some kind of fucking message in that. All right. I would never, ever do that again.
Right.
You know, typically what happens is the left wing stays at home on the sofa. The fucking right wing never stays at home. They are there to put their people in office. Okay. The Proud Boys stated at the very beginning, when Trump took office, that their goal is to continue on and put as many of them in office as they can. Okay? Understand what's going on here. If you want to be led by a bunch of fascists, we're well on our way there. All right? The governors in this state, in this country, the governors in the Republican states are all acolytes of Donald Trump pretty much. And the ones he has endorsed for election, they all think just like him. Donald Trump, people say to me, I had my boss say to me, I don't understand the GOP with Donald Trump. He wasn't a politician before he ran, and he's not a politician now. What kind of hold does he have over them? It's the shit that comes out of his mouth. It's the bullshit that raises and elevates the inner douchebag of the white supremacist that has just exploded in this country. It is so ugly here now that I can't even imagine what my kids are going to be 21. The other one's 25. I can't imagine what their lives are going to be like.
Here's
in their kids' lives.
Yeah. Here's what I feel is actually more dangerous with the United States than with fascist Italy and maybe even fascist Germany, in that Italy had Mussolini, Germany had Hitler. Now we have Trump, but he may not even get into office. What is happening is we are having an influx of fascism through thousands of these politicians, not just one. So it's an infrastructure that I have never seen before. With Germany, get rid of Hitler, and you might see the dominoes topple. You get rid of one guy, it's going to be way more difficult this time than to take this down.
Okay. Say Trump doesn't run. Okay. What are we left with on the GOP side?
We have DeSantis, we have Abbott, we have Jim Jordan, we have about 10 others. Marjorie Taylor Greene, we have Lauren Boebert, we have Madison Cawthorn, we have a ton of them.
Yep. And they're in office right now. They're in office right now. Okay. And I can't tell you. I will let you know that right now, Sarah and I have discussed making a chart of everybody that could run and who could run against them. You know, people need to understand what's going on here. This is how this shit starts. Okay. Right. In this country, it starts by putting them in government and getting them to pass laws that make fascism seem like it's normal.
And by the way, it would be much easier if any of you guys watch this and see this and say, hey, I live in Utah, I live in Idaho, I live in Oregon. I see these guys, this guy is freaking dangerous.
Send them to us.
Send them to us, and we will put them on the chart, and we will say, hey, these are the people who are running against them.
I'm telling you right now, we need people to look at what's going on in their state, in their town, and send us information. Listen, this is as serious. I can't emphasize how scary this is. Okay, I can't. And people need to understand what this is all about. This is not about your rights or your freedoms. In fact, if you think at the end of the day, if the right wing wins the day, that taking your masks off and not getting a vaccine means that you're free, you're about to have a rude fucking awakening. Okay? They don't want anybody to have any say unless you agree with what they're saying. And if you agree with what they're saying and their set of beliefs, then you are a Nazi, you are a fascist,
right.
and you are a right winger. You
By
are
the
not
way,
anymore on the left.
let's say you're a white guy, right? I'm a white guy. I'm a labor organizer. I'm a union rep. I'm the enemy.
Right.
You have to understand that. If you're a worker and you try to speak up against, for your rights, you're the enemy. If you try to speak up in a town hall and this happens, you're the enemy.
And by the way, if you think these people are anti-corporate, you need to think again. You need to really think again, because they're all being funded by the Koch network. And I'm making a video tomorrow morning on all of that.
Right.
On how they have co-opted the COVID movement and how they have co-opted all of this bullshit and fucking funneled money into it. And that's it. I got nothing left to say. I'm going to shut off the recording.